Transfers that shocked the world. The transfer window is open, players will come and go, and controversy is on the horizon. Let us take you back to some of the biggest transfers the footballing world has ever seen and the controversy that surrounded it. I am your host, Alina Ingram, and welcome again to another incredible episode of Football Team Talk. In the summer of 1984, the footballing world stood still as Diego Armando Maradona, the most electrifying player of his generation, and arguably in history, left Spanish giants Barcelona to join Napoli for a world record fee of £6.9 million. Napoli were a club that had never won a league title. They were a mid-table team, better known for its passionate fan base and chaotic politics than any silverware. It was often looked down upon by the elite Italian clubs like Juventus, Milan and Inter. So why was it so unthinkable? Maradona's transfer wasn't just shocking because of the £6.9 million fee, but because of who he was and where he was going. At just 23 years old, Maradona was already a global icon. Despite a turbulent stint at Barcelona, which included injuries, illness, a brutal brawl in the Copa del Rey final, his raw genius was undeniable. He had offers from elite clubs across Europe, but chose Napoli, a team that had just narrowly avoided relegation. To put it in modern terms, it would be like Lionel Messi in his prime, leaving Barcelona to join Everton, or Kylian Mbappe choosing to play for a club 10th in the table instead of Real Madrid. Maradona's arrival in Naples was unlike anything football had ever seen. 75,000 fans packed into the Stadio San Paolo for his unveiling, just to watch him juggle a ball in a tracksuit. The city was brought to a standstill. Banners, flags, murals, the entire city treated him as a saviour. Local newspapers declared the city of Naples has been redeemed. For a working-class population often ridiculed by the northern cities, Maradona wasn't just a signing. He was hope, defiance and pride wrapped in one man. Maradona didn't just elevate Napoli, he transformed them. Under his leadership, Napoli won their first ever Serie A title in 1986-87, followed by a second in 1989-90. They also lifted the Coppa Italia in 1987, UEFA Cup in 1989 and the Italian Super Cup in 1990. He became club captain, league top scorer and the heartbeat of the city. For context, this was against a backdrop of a Juventus side stacked with Italian World Cup winners, a dominant Milan under Arrigo Sacchi and later Fabio Capello, Inter's German engine room of Matthias Bremer and Klinsmann. Yet Maradona's Napoli stood toe-to-toe and often came out on top, a footballing miracle. Of course, this fairy tale had its darker chapters. Maradona's time in Naples was also marked by his personal decline, addiction issues, mafia connections, and off-field scandals. But even with the chaos, the magic he produced on the pitch never faded. He wasn't just loved, he was worshipped. His goals weren't just celebrated, they were canonised. Even decades later, shrines to Maradona still line the streets of Naples. Why is this transfer still talked about as one of the greatest shocks in football history? Because it wasn't supposed to happen. The biggest player in the world wasn't meant to go to a small, chaotic, overlooked club. He wasn't meant to carry them to glory. He wasn't meant to become a folk hero, a symbol of southern pride and a footballing god. But he did. And in doing so, Diego Maradona to Napoli in 1984 became more than just a transfer. It became a legend, one of the rare moments when football transcended sport and became a story of redemption, rebellion, and pure magic. Our second transfer occurred in the summer of 2000, where football witnessed a betrayal so seismic that it redefined the meaning of rivalry. Luis Figo, then the beloved captain and symbol of FC Barcelona, left the Catalan giants to join their eternal enemies, Real Madrid. But this wasn't just a high-profile transfer, it was a cold, calculated defection that ignited outrage, shifted the power dynamic in Spanish football, and launched an entirely new footballing era, the Galacticos. By 2000, Figo wasn't just a top player, he was the face of Barcelona. He'd spent 5 seasons at the club, becoming the chief creator, penalty taker, set-piece specialist, and fan favourite. Barca fans adored him not just for his talent, but because of his commitment to the shirt, his work rate, and his understanding of the club's identity. He helped them win 2 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Reys, and a UEFA Super Cup. He was talismanic, the kind of player who didn't just play for Barca, he represented them. And then Florentino Perez happened. Perez was campaigning for the Real Madrid presidency. His promise, if elected, was to bring Luis Figo to Madrid. Most thought it was a bluff, a political gimmick. Even Figo himself had reportedly verbally agreed to a move but never believed it would materialise. But Perez won the election, triggered Figo's release clause, then a staggering £37 million, a world record at the time, and suddenly it was real. Luis Figo was a Real Madrid player. To say the move enraged Barca fans is an understatement. It was viewed as treason. Figo went from idol to traitor overnight. His posters were torn down, his shirts were burned. He was branded Judas by the fans. Barca ultras vowed he would never be welcome in Catalonia again. But it wasn't just betrayal, it was betrayal to the enemy. The rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid isn't just a footballing one. It's political, regional, cultural. It's Catalonia versus the Spanish state. So Figo's move had layers of symbolism and venom that extended far beyond sport. On October 21st, 2000, Luis Figo returned to the Camp Nou for El Clásico, wearing white for what became known as the Pig's Head match. Every time he touched the ball, there were deafening whistles. Every corner he took, he was pelted with bottles, lighters, coins, mobile phones, and infamously, a severed pig's head. A pig's head was thrown at a footballer. The match was nearly abandoned. Figo refused to take further corners. It became one of the most iconic and hostile atmospheres in football history, still spoken of today as the ultimate act of fan protest. But there was more at play. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was the birth of a revolution. Florentino Perez's signing of Figo marked the beginning of his Galactico policy, targeting global superstars every summer. It wasn't just about building a team. It was about making Real Madrid the biggest global brand in football. After Figo came Zidane, Ronaldo, Beckham, and the rest is history. Figo was ground zero for that strategy, and the shock of that initial signing made every Galactico move that followed feel more possible. Looking back, the Figo transfer was more than just controversial. It was foundational. It symbolised the end of innocence in the transfer market, a time when loyalty could be bought for the right price. It redefined what clubs were willing to do and what fans could never forgive. It created the most emotionally charged atmosphere ever seen in a modern stadium. Luis Figo would go on to win 2 La Liga titles, 1 Champions League and a Ballon d'Or in 2000, awarded just months after the transfer, rubbing further salt in Barcelona wounds. To this day, when people speak of footballing betrayal, they say, like Figo to Madrid. Our third transfer is that of the incredible Neymar to PSG in 2017. When Neymar made the move from Barcelona to PSG in August 2017, it wasn't just a big transfer. It was a detonation that sent shockwaves through every level of football. The scale, the secrecy, the consequences, and the cultural impact of the move created a perfect storm of controversy that changed the sport forever. The €222 million fee was more than double the previous world record transfer, Paul Pogba to Manchester United, for £89 million. It wasn't just a new record, it completely redefined the concept of player value. Clubs and players around the world recalibrated overnight. If Neymar cost €222 million, what were Messi, Ronaldo or Mbappe worth? This inflationary shockwave disrupted the market. Fees ballooned. Wage demands soared. It became harder than ever for smaller clubs to compete financially. Perhaps the most controversial element of the deal was how PSG got it done. UEFA's Financial Fair Play (FFP) rules were designed to prevent clubs from overspending beyond their means. Paris Saint-Germain, owned by Qatar Sports Investments, didn't pay the fee directly. Instead, Neymar paid the release clause himself, using funds allegedly provided via a Qatari ambassadorial deal tied to the 2022 World Cup. This creative and very grey area workaround sidestepped FFP while still delivering Neymar to PSG. Many clubs, especially in Spain, viewed it as financial doping, a system where oil-rich state-backed clubs could legally outspend everyone else through loopholes and sponsorships. One of the most emotional and confusing aspects was Neymar choosing to leave Barcelona. He wasn't a bench warmer. He was part of the iconic MSN trio with Messi and Suarez. He had just helped Barcelona complete a historic comeback against PSG in the Champions League, scoring twice in the famous 6-1 win. He was beloved by fans, already a global superstar and seen as Messi's natural heir, so why leave? The answer was layered and divisive. Neymar wanted to step out of Messi's shadow. He craved Ballon d'Or recognition, which he believed he wouldn't get while playing second fiddle to the Argentine legend. PSG offered him a starring role, an astronomical wage, and the chance to build his own legacy. To many fans and pundits, however, the move felt like a betrayal of sporting ambition in favour of money and ego. Barcelona weren't just heartbroken, they were furious. The club immediately filed lawsuits against Neymar for breach of contract and demanded he repay loyalty bonuses. Neymar countersued, claiming he was owed wages and bonuses. Even years later, court cases were still being settled over unpaid clauses and image rights. What made it worse? Barcelona used the funds from Neymar's sale to make panicked, overpriced signings. Ousmane Dembélé from Dortmund, 135 million. Philippe Coutinho from Liverpool, 142 million pounds. Neither lived up to expectations, and the club has been in financial disarray ever since. A spiral that ultimately contributed to losing Messi in 2021. There's no denying Neymar's talent or his role in PSG's dominance in France, but many fans and critics still ask if the transfer delivered on its promise. PSG won domestic trebles, but the goal was the Champions League, and they only won it for the first time this year. Neymar's PSG tenure was plagued by injuries, off-field drama, and unfulfilled potential. In key Champions League knockout rounds, he was often absent or ineffective, including missing crucial ties against Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. His brilliance was never in doubt, but his legacy became murky. Neymar to PSG wasn't just about football, it was a geopolitical power play. Qatar's ownership of PSG is part of a broader strategy of soft power and global branding, with Neymar as the ultimate marketing asset. The deal happened just as Qatar was under a diplomatic blockade from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and others. The timing felt symbolic, a way of saying we're still here and we own the biggest star in the sport. Neymar's arrival transformed PSG's global brand, instantly elevating the club to the same marketing tier as Real Madrid, Barca and Man United. Today, the Neymar to PSG transfer is still the biggest in history. It remains one of the most controversial deals, not just because of what Neymar did, but because of what it caused and what it symbolised. Our fourth transfer happened in July 2001 and was one of the most unthinkable betrayals in English football. Sol Campbell, the rock-solid centre-back, captain of Tottenham Hotspur and local academy graduate, walked out of White Hart Lane and joined their arch-rivals Arsenal. And he did it for free. It wasn't just a transfer, it was a defection, a bombshell that detonated in the heart of North London football. Campbell wasn't just any player, he was a Tottenham Academy product who had risen through the ranks. The club's captain, best defender, and England international. A leader who had often spoken about building something at Spurs. He had become a symbol of hope during a difficult era for Tottenham, a team that at the time was stuck in mid-table obscurity, well behind Arsenal in stature and success. Fans believed he would be the cornerstone of a new era, and then he left to the one club they hate most. The way the transfer unfolded only made things worse. There was no farewell, no warning, no transfer speculation. The deal was orchestrated in total secrecy by Arsenal manager Arsène Wenger and vice-chairman David Dine. The announcement came out of nowhere, catching even journalists by surprise. Campbell appeared at the unveiling of Richard Wright, Arsenal's new goalkeeper, and the press were told, by the way, here's Sol Campbell. Tottenham fans were blindsided. One day he was the club captain. The next, he was standing next to Wenger, holding up an Arsenal shirt. The reaction from Tottenham supporters was instant and vicious. Fans burned shirts with his name, unfurled banners reading "scum," and serenaded matches with chants about betrayal. Every time Campbell returned to White Hart Lane, the atmosphere was poisonous. He was booed relentlessly and faced personal abuse of an intensity few players have ever experienced. Even decades later, Campbell still receives vitriol from a section of Spurs fans, online, in stadiums, and even in media coverage. The shock wasn't just about crossing a rivalry, it was how wide the gap was at the time. Arsenal were Premier League contenders, boasting a squad that included Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira and Dennis Bergkamp. To Spurs fans, it wasn't just disloyalty, it was Campbell abandoning the club for success and glory, something they felt he should have helped build, not chase. From a purely footballing point of view, Campbell's decision was a masterstroke. He immediately became a mainstay in Arsenal's backline and won 2 Premier League titles and 2 FA Cups. Most famously, he was a central figure in the 2003-04 Invincibles season, when Arsenal went the entire Premier League campaign unbeaten. He even scored in a Champions League final, 2006 versus Barcelona, although Arsenal ultimately lost 2-1. While his legacy at Tottenham was obliterated, his status at Arsenal became legendary. Sol Campbell's move remains to this day one of the most shocking and polarising transfers ever seen in English football. It also showcased player power in a new era, a reminder that loyalty often bends to ambition, opportunity and silverware. Campbell has since claimed the abuse took a mental toll, particularly the racial overtones and personal attacks he endured over the years. Still, in terms of football history, this was a turning point, a moment that redefined what was possible, what was forgivable, and how far rivalry can stretch. Our last controversial transfer happened in 1961 when football was rocked by a move that shattered conventions. Luis Suarez, no, not that one, then the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, left Barcelona for Inter Milan for a world record £152,000. It wasn't just a blockbuster deal. It was a statement of power, ambition and transformation. Suarez wasn't just any player. At the time of the transfer, he was widely considered the best midfielder in the world. He had just won the 1960 Ballon d'Or, becoming the first and only Spanish-born player to ever receive the award. He was the creative heart of Barcelona, a team riding high after winning La Liga and reaching the European Cup final in 1961. The idea of a player like that leaving in his prime, not to Real Madrid, not to another Spanish giant, but to Italy, was unthinkable. And yet Inter Milan pulled it off. The fee, £152,000, was the highest ever paid for a footballer at the time. Adjusted for inflation and market comparison, that figure would be tens of millions today. It was the first time clubs and fans truly questioned, is any player worth that much money? The transfer broke a psychological and financial barrier. It proved that top talent could be prized away, even from one of the world's biggest clubs, if you had the money, the ambition, and the vision. The move wasn't just about buying talent, it was about building an empire. Inter's manager, Helenio Herrera, had previously worked with Suarez at Barcelona and saw him as the linchpin of his tactical revolution in Italy. With Suarez pulling the strings, Herrera's Inter evolved into La Grande Inter, a dominant force in Europe, built around tactical discipline, the birth of modern Catenaccio, a ruthless counter-attacking football and a creative, controlling playmaker in the middle, Luis Suarez. The move was the catalyst for Inter's golden era, which included 3 Serie A titles, 2 European Cups and 2 Intercontinental Cups. For Barca, the deal felt like a betrayal of identity. Suarez had become their icon, not just a great player, but a symbol of Spanish footballing excellence. His departure left a massive void and the club never truly replaced him during the 1960s. The transfer marked the beginning of a decline in continental power for Barcelona that would last well into the 1970s. Fans were heartbroken. Newspapers mourned the move. The Catalan press branded it a tragic mistake. This transfer marked the moment that Italian football emerged as a serious global force. Until that point, Serie A had talent, but not the gravitas of La Liga or the prestige of Real Madrid's European dominance. By signing the Ballon d'Or winner and making him their star, Inter Milan sent a message. Italian clubs can buy and build the best. It set a precedent that would last for decades, leading to Serie A becoming the most glamorous league in the world by the 1980s and 1990s. Luis Suarez to Inter Milan in 1961 was not just a footnote in football history. It's one of the defining moments of the sport's evolution into a global business and tactical arms race. That's all from us here at Football Team Talk. Make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on more talk from the football world. Once again, I've been your host, Alina Ingram, and it's goodbye from me.